Order, order. I call Damien Hines to move the motion.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to see you in the chair. Sir Christopher, UK productivity is well below that of the United States, Germany and France. And that is not a new thing. That has been true in every year since I have been alive. If we were able to fix that productivity gap, we could have higher living standards, lower tax and more tax revenue. Now, there are multiple reasons for the gap, and much academic literature has been written on it. But the level of skills in an economy is fundamental to productivity and therefore to growth. And it's also important how we run our skills system, because there is a cadre of young people who are less orientated towards pure academic study but have talent and flair in technical pursuits. And they deserve just the same opportunities and life chances as those who go on the academic route. But in this country, although we are famous for aspects of our educational system, for our higher education, universities, and for aspects of our school system, and increasingly so our school system, we are not, I'm afraid, for technical, vocational and education and training, where people, foreign ministers, if they come to Europe to look at vocational education, tend to go to Germany. And if there's one thing we don't like in England, it's losing out to Germany. So it is right that successive governments have been troubled by this situation and have sought to fix it. But sometimes perhaps they've been a bit too quick to look for a fix. The story of our organisational infrastructure around technical and vocational is not one of stability. We have had industrial training boards, the Manpower Services Commission, the Training Commission, Training and Enterprise Councils, TECs. But those TECs are different from another TEC, which was the Technical Education Council, which existed alongside the Business Education Council, BEC. The two, of course, would eventually merge to give us BTECs. There were national training organisations, the Learning and Skills Council, sector skills councils, the UK Commission for Employment and Skills, the Skills Funding Agency, the SFA, which would later be the ESFA, and most recently LSIPs and IFATE. And this has been mirrored by a panoply of qualifications and awards. Traditional apprenticeships and then modern apprenticeships, the YTS, the City and Guild system, the TVEI, the NCVQ, NVQs, which are still in use, and GNVQs, which then evolved into BTECs and diplomas. There were the 14 to 19 diplomas, which were not quite the same thing as the Tomlinson diplomas. There was the Skills for Life programme and traineeships. Altogether, today, there are somewhere between 100 and 200 recognised awarding organisations, excluding those who only do apprenticeship endpoint assessments. So now, just at level 3, the equivalent to A-levels, you have the following qualifications: TEC levels as well as T levels, applied generals, level 3 ESOL, level 3 NVQ, access to higher education diplomas, a level 3 award, a level 3 certificate and a level 3 diploma. Or you might prefer a level 3 national certificate or a level 3 national diploma. There is also an extended diploma, a subsidiary diploma and a technical introductory diploma. Together with other non-level 3 courses available to 16 to 18-year-olds, there's no actual official count, but by the mid-2010s, somebody had counted up what they could find and found there were at least 13,000 possible qualifications somebody in that age group could do. So it is not surprising that when the Independent Panel on Technical Education was created in 2015 to 16, they found that vocational education and training had become over-complex, pointing out... I will give way.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for giving way and securing this really important debate. 6.9% of young people in Somerset are believed to be not in education, employment, education or training, which is higher than the national average of 5.5%. So does the Honourable Member agree with me that the government should not only improve the quality of vocational education, but also strengthen the careers advice and links with employers in schools and colleges to enable more young people to get into education on the right courses?
Indeed, she's absolutely right. And part of careers advice is knowing which is the correct course to take, the correct qualification to pursue. And the panel that I mentioned found that if you were looking at a career in plumbing, for example, there were 33 different qualifications that you might seek to take. It also found that the various qualifications in general were not providing the skills that were needed because they'd become divorced from the occupations they were meant to serve, with no requirement or weak requirement to meet employers' needs in those occupations. Its report, which came out in April 2016, became a blueprint for a major upgrade of technical and vocational education in this country. They determined to address both the productivity gap and very clearly also the social justice gap of some young people being left behind. And I want to stress that although it was a blueprint, Sir Christopher, it was also a red print, because this report, the panel was chaired by the distinguished Labour peer, the noble Lord Sainsbury. Its report called for what they call a fundamental shift, with a coherent technical option right the way through from levels 2 to 5, with 16 clearly defined sector routes covering 35 different career pathways. 3 of those would be only available through apprenticeships. The other 12 would be done by either apprenticeship or through a college track. There would be common standards for both. And whichever one you did, the apprenticeship or the college-based, would result in the same or equivalent knowledge, skills and behaviours to take into the workplace. They said we should delineate clearly this from the academic route because they are different and they're trying to do different things, but it must be possible for young people to move between the two in either direction. They also recommended expanding the then Institute for Apprenticeships into an Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, so as to cover both tracks. And they specified, and I quote, that specifying standards is not a role for officials in central government. Instead, it is for professionals within occupations supported by education professionals. They recommended there should be improvements to apprenticeships and a new college-based, largely college-based qualification which would become known as the T-level. With T-levels, the knowledge and skills content and the required behaviours are set not by somebody in the Department for Education, but by employers. There is the core technical qualification, but there is also content in English, in maths and in digital. Crucially, there is a 45-day industrial placement. There are also more college hours than in traditional vocational qualifications, and indeed more taught hours per week than for A-levels. Now, for the upgrade that we needed in our country, both in our productivity and in the opportunities available to all young people, it had to become the principal college-based option, not the only, but the principal, the main college-based vocational qualification. And it couldn't be grafted on to a market that already had all these thousands of qualifications in it, where there is incumbency advantage to some of them and indeed commercial interests attached to some of them. It had to replace a lot of them. And the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has been speaking about this quite recently. The other thing that was always going to be difficult about T-levels is finding enough industry placements. Sainsbury found that we might need up to 250,000 industry placements for 17-year-olds. And of course, that is hard to do. You could say it's too hard to do and give up. But if you gave up, you would be giving up on advancing our competitiveness. The alternative is that we change culture in our country and say to companies that if you want your company to be a great success in your sector, if you want your sector to be a great success in our country, and if you want our whole country to be a success in the world, then yes, we all have to be investing both the resource and the time in the next generation coming through.
Thank the Honourable Member for giving way. And I don't disagree with him on this point. I just wanted to highlight in my constituency of Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, there is an apprenticeship provider called Catch. Local businesses have come together to invest in a brand new welding apprenticeship facility that over the next few years will be delivering 1,000 apprentices. Is this the kind of partnership working that he envisages working well for local communities, for young people and for business?
I'm sure it is. And I will come to apprenticeships in a moment. I was just talking about industry placements in T-levels. And colleagues will know from having spoken to young people doing T-levels, actually it's probably the feature of T-level that is the most popular. The fact that you get to do a real role in a real workplace. It's also very, very popular with employers who provide them. Because first, yes, they are investing in the next generation. They are helping to develop all those things that employers sometimes complain about, the development of soft skills, workplace skills. But it's also the most fantastic, longest ever job interview where you get to see the people who may come and work in your company in future over an extended period. And I appeal to ministers to carry on the great work in shouting about T-levels and talking about these great opportunities and the upgrade they represent. There were two big changes made on apprenticeships. The first was to make sure there were minimum standards. As previously, as colleagues will recall, there were some apprenticeships that were so thin, so flimsy, that some apprentices didn't know they were on an apprenticeship. And so the minimum standards came in, so there would be at least a minimum of 1 year, and there would be at least 20% of time off the job. And again, as with T-levels, there would be an endpoint assessment in the case of apprenticeships, which would be feature standards set by employers. The second big change was the introduction of the apprenticeship levy. Now, it's always been controversial with some employers, but it was there to do two things. Firstly, to raise the funds needed to pay for a big upgrade in apprenticeship provision, and secondly, to deal with the free rider problem. The problem that we will all be familiar with, that there are some companies in a sector who do invest, always have invested very strongly in young people coming through, and then there is a risk that 3 years later, those young people just leave and go to work for another employer who can offer to pay more, but has not made that investment in the first place. The apprenticeship levy deals directly with that, what economists call the free rider problem, to make sure that every sizable company is contributing properly. Now, the new government plans to change the scope of what the levy will cover, and it plans to introduce two new types of apprenticeship, which I think it's fair to say we so far don't know a huge amount about. They are foundation apprenticeships and shorter apprenticeships. Now, there is an argument to say that we already make the word apprenticeship do a lot of work. It covers a very, very wide spectrum. And arguably, there are three different types of development of self and training, which have different needs. So whether you're a career starter, a career developer, or a career changer, arguably the specifications of the main course and qualification to lead into that would be different. So, for example, if you're a 50-year-old changing career, you do not need to learn as many things about what it's like to enter a workplace as you do if you're an 18-year-old for the first time. But only one of those things, in truth, career starter, changer, and developer, only one of them is what a normal member of the public recognises or would associate with the word apprentice. We think of people who are young, typically, and are starting out on their working journey. Now, it is totally legitimate to look at changing what the levy covers, and I think it is good to refocus on young people, on career starters. It's also reasonable to say that the levy could cover some things which are not apprenticeships, whether that's management development or traineeships or something like that. But I do think, Sir Christopher, there is huge value in maintaining integrity around what we mean by the word apprenticeship and keeping a minimum length and a minimum quantity of college or off-work content. And whatever they do, whatever the government does with the levy, they need to find a way to deal with the free rider problem. That obviously you'll always have companies lobbying to say we should be able to use the levy for this and that and the other. But if this and that or the other was training they were going to pay for anyway, then the levy has not achieved its goal. It has to be something that creates a net increase in the amount of training and development that is available. That brings me on to Skills England. Now, ministers in governments like shiny new things, and there are always people who will lobby for things to change. And a sweet spot is found in public policy when the two coincide. When ministers get lobbied to do something and they think they've come up with a shiny new thing which sounds like it's going to achieve those ends. And Skills England, Sir Christopher, is one of those things. Without major design change, I'm afraid it is doomed to failure. I have no doubt there have been plenty of people who were lobbying the now government when they were in opposition to say we need a different approach to skills, we need to think about it across government, we need to take the long view, we need to listen to employers, we need to listen to young people, and we need to have this integrated approach. And they've come up with this thing called Skills England, which they think will do that. So, Christopher, this will be the 13th new skills agency in 5 decades. And if all it took to solve our skills and productivity problem was a change in the machinery of government, do they not think one of the previous 12 might already have managed it? The instinct I know in difficult circumstances is break glass and reach for a quango. But Skills England isn't even a quango. It is nada. It's not quasi-autonomous. It is a non-accountable departmental agency. And there is no particular reason, I believe, to think that it will be any better at working across government, let alone across the economy, in solving these issues. And if the government was really serious about saying, let's create something new to join together the Home Office, the Business Department, DFE and everybody else, you would put it in the Treasury. Or you might put it in the Cabinet Office. But you wouldn't just make it part of the DFE management structure. And worse than this is the loss of independence compared to the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. Now, there's legislation currently going through the other place, which ostensibly is creating Skills England. The legislation does no such thing. All it does is it abolishes the Independent Institute and moves all of its powers to the Secretary of State, into the Department for Education. So now the Secretary of State is going to have responsibility for standards for T-levels. Can you imagine if that was A-levels? So if it's not all right for A-levels, why should it be all right for T-levels? There's also no guarantee of business continuing to be, if he'll forgive me, of business continuing to be involved in setting those standards. And I'm afraid public and business confidence is set to be eroded. And rightly, because everybody knows that if you're in government and you're trying to increase the numbers of people doing anything in education, the easiest way is to erode those standards to get more people through. Now, Sir Christopher, the Sainsbury report, I believe, was a good blueprint, and I think it's still a good blueprint. The government is, of course, entirely entitled to evolve it, but it should recognise that the principles remain sound. With T-levels, it was always going to be hard getting sufficient industry placements and overcoming the powerful objections that you need to change the system rather than just add to the system. And with apprenticeships, there will always be, and there always have been, as there always have been, some firms who try to game the system. And you can argue about exactly what the levy should cover or not cover. But the levy itself is a good thing, and it needs to be designed in such a way and maintained in such a way that it encourages a net increase in investment in this area and deals with the free rider problem. There will always be some cost and downside when you raise the bar, when you raise the minimum standards, as we did. But we need to remember where we started, with the need to increase our productivity and have higher expectations for all in the interest of social justice. So we need to maintain those minimum standards, also to keep apprenticeships and T-levels equivalent with the same or equivalent levels of knowledge, skills and behaviours. And finally, the independence of the body that sets the standards, working with and by and for business, is absolutely key. And so I'd ask the Minister, obviously they're going to keep Skills England, but I would ask her, please, to build into the design of Skills England proper, full independence from her department and a proper, full guiding role for business, the business that these occupations need to serve, and not just for ministers to say it, but for them to write that in to the legislation.
Question is that this House has considered apprenticeships and T-levels. Sonia Kumar.
It's an honour to serve under your chairmanship. I'd like to thank the member of East Hamptonshire, for securing this important debate on the pivotal role of apprenticeships and T-levels in our national industry strategy. As we face a significant skills gap, particularly in STEM fields, these pathways are critical for equipping our workforce with the expertise needed to drive innovation and economic growth. T-levels and apprenticeships bridge the gap between education and the workplace, combining classroom learning and practical experience. T-levels provide substantial industrial placements, while apprenticeships enable individuals to earn while they gain real-world skills. Together, they address shortages in key sectors like manufacturing, construction, healthcare and beauty, ensuring students are job-ready from day one. In my constituency of Dudley, the Dudley College of Technology amplifies this excellence in this area. The college offers a wide range of T-levels across many disciplines, blending academic and practical learning. It's committed to apprenticeships are equally impressive, with over 4,000 apprenticeships supported through strong partnerships with local businesses. These collaborations ensure training meets industry needs and contributes to the regional economic growth. STEM sector remains the heart of the industrial strategy, but continues to face persistent skills shortages. Apprenticeships and T-levels are vital in addressing these challenges, building a workforce equipped for careers in science, technology, engineering and maths. Institutions like Dudley Tech play a key role in closing this gap, but we must focus on the diversity in STEM. Currently, women make only 27% of STEM workers, despite making 52% of the country's wider workforce. Meanwhile, only 12% of STEM workers come from ethnic minority backgrounds, making up 19% of the workforce. We will not see improvement unless we address this matter head-on and break down barriers to apprenticeships and A-levels and T-levels. Measures by the previous government were ineffective, with female aged 16 to 29 making up only 29% of the STEM, a mere 1% higher than the generation before them. Underrepresentation of women, minorities and those from disadvantaged backgrounds remain a barrier to unlocking the country's true economic and technological potential on a global stage. Making apprenticeships and T-levels more accessible will attract a broader range of talent, enriching the STEM workforce and fostering innovation. In conclusion, therefore, we must make apprenticeships and T-levels more accessible to attract a broader range of talent, particularly in STEM, to further promote the uptake of diverse audiences by fostering partnerships between educational institutions like Dudley Tech and create a more skilled environment for all.
Luke Taylor.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Member for East Hampshire for securing this debate on such a critical issue for our young people. Today, I want to highlight a major concern among college staff and students, the need for certainty over the potential defunding of BTECs in favour of T-levels. For years, BTECs have served as a trusted form of Level 3 qualification, providing students with practical and theoretical skills in a format that staff are experienced in delivering. I've heard from teachers about the pride and joy they take in teaching BTECs, watching their students thrive as they apply themselves to often very practical subjects. In many cases, it is the first time that these children have ever felt passionate about learning and excited to go further. It gives them the chance to finally start down the path that I imagine all of us in this room want young people to take towards realising their full potential. That is why so many are concerned about the replacement of BTECs with T-levels, and why I hope the government addresses these concerns when it publishes the findings of its review of the policy next month. I've heard from teachers who say they will struggle with the suggested rapid adoption of new course structures and unfamiliar theoretical components across the whole range of non-A-level subjects. Staff at South Thames Colleges Group, which serves many of my local students, have expressed concerns to me about how these sweeping changes will be implemented effectively. Currently, around 58 courses are at risk of being defunded. Absolutely.
Thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. Isn't some of the concern coming from colleges also in relation to timing for some of these decisions? I know that Franklin College in my constituency have said that the earlier they know, the better they can plan, because they're already receiving parents and young people in for open days for courses next year.
A point so good, I will be getting to it shortly. Completely agree. Thank you very much for your contribution. Staff worry about having to adapt to their curricula to align with the new T-levels, and this involves updating course content, revising teaching methods and redesigning assessment strategies to meet the new required standards. There is no way to do this without enormous time-consuming upheaval, which they will need as much notice as possible to prepare for. Teachers deserve a definitive answer on what will happen next. And it's not just teaching staff. Students have also been left in the dark. Approximately 380 students planning to enrol at a college within the South Thames Colleges Group are being affected by the confusion surrounding the implementation of T-levels. Those currently completing GCSEs, planning for their post-16 education, face uncertainty about what their courses will look like in September 2025 and fear the removal of the element of choice in the system. BTECs formerly offered the option of a professional placement, but T-levels are geared specifically to them. This leaves those who may not be academically suited to A-levels, but who do not wish to begin a T-level course, 20% of which is effectively a job, with no real support. An example I was given on a visit to Carshalton College was that there were 120 applicants for a diploma for childcare, but only 7 for a T-level in childcare, leaving a potential shortage in qualified staff coming through the system. This impact is disproportionately felt by those with SEND, many of whom need extra support to explore their options before entering adult life, and for whom entry into the world of work may not be the right option so early in childhood, so early into adulthood. Sorry. Nobody is denying that there is merit in reviewing the way we train our young people for the future on a periodic basis, but forcing students to choose exclusively between A-levels and T-levels could represent a narrowing of their options. So I fear that this is a poorly managed top-down change for teachers to implement. And I believe it's also a gamble with the opportunities of a generation of young people who, let us not forget, have already had their education severely disrupted by the COVID pandemic. With September 2025 rapidly approaching, I urge the Government to provide clarity to all those affected in order for both students and staff to plan for the change ahead, but to also think again to give flexibility to colleges and students to choose the appropriate qualifications for them and their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship.
Making sure that our young people have access to a wide range of education opportunities which can lead them on to high quality, well paid and secure employment is absolutely vital to the health of our economy. In fact, in constituencies like mine, in towns like Mansfield, which are to some extent facing a brain drain due to poor investment, both in employment opportunities, but also having a weak private sector and having those difficulties highlighted by the Honourable Member in terms of productivity and gross value added, are real challenges in constituencies like mine. And in July, I was elected with a mandate for change. Locally, I stood on a platform to focus on 5 local missions that I thought would have a significant impact. Now, one of these missions was to do everything that I could do to facilitate a stable and growing local economy, good quality jobs for everyone in my constituency. And of course, a major part of this is ensuring that there's a wide range of high calibre academic and vocational education opportunities, and recognising that that is critical in achieving this. And so I welcome the debate that we're having today. Without that skill, that supply of a highly skilled workforce, we really can't attract the investment that we need in areas like mine, and we know that that brings prosperity for our communities. And so I am delighted to see that the government has made additional money available in the budget for further education, of an announced reforms to the apprenticeship system with a new growth and skills levy. I welcome the progress, and I know that the government over the coming months and years has aspirations to do more, and I want Mansfield to be a part of this conversation. I've had a number of discussions, Sir Christopher, with West Notts College and Nottingham Trent University about their funding streams, as well as ways in which they feel they can work together more effectively to bring exactly those types of opportunities within the further and higher education sector for young people and for adults in my constituency. And as a part of this, we've seen a £6.5 million education investment from Nottingham Trent University in my constituency. This is delivering specialist teaching and learning facilities to support local people to upskill retain and access their employment in the local area. This includes really important opportunities in nursing, aligned with the local health authority, in engineering, business, criminal justice and sports science. So I congratulate both of those parties on their work, which has enabled all of that to come to fruition. And I see a latent potential to build upon this collaboration between HE and FE in my constituency, which might be called the Mansfield model across further education. By cutting red tape and streamlining the effectiveness of funding, like in the West Notts and Nottingham-Trent University joint campus in my constituency, I think it would be really possible to unleash the power of further education provision. And so, given that success that I see in my local area, I recently wrote to the Secretary of State, Bridget Phillipson, inviting her to Mansfield again, and I'd be delighted to host a minister from the department so that they can see directly how this local model could be used as a blueprint to improve skills and attract that very important private sector investment into towns like mine.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. And I draw members' attention to my register of interest, and I thank the Right Honourable Member for East Hampshire for securing this important debate. While I agree with my Right Honourable friend that much more needs to be done to encourage apprenticeships and technical education, when I think back to what I was deciding to do after secondary school, I envy the choices available to young people today. I left school in an era under Tony Blair's target of 50% of young people were expected to go to university. And that's what I did, but that simply wasn't the right route for me. On-the-job training with the promise of full-time job at the end of it is a fantastic way for many young people to kick-start their careers. So I'm pleased that the previous government did so much to increase the opportunities available to young people. 5.8 million apprenticeships were created, with the overwhelming majority of occupations now able to offer the apprenticeship route. And I'm proud of the work taking place in my constituency of Broxbourne as part of this. Hertford Regional College offers a wide range of post-16 professional and technical programmes and apprenticeships, with nearly 3,000 young people are going onto these courses, getting the skills they need for their careers. And at the end of their course, they are going on to full-time employment or further education, and that is above the national average. We are very good at getting people into full-time employment after they go to this college. And I'm pleased that from September 2025, 3 schools within the Broxbourne constituency will offer T-level pathways, but there is still much more to do. Too many students are embarking on low-quality university degree courses with little prospect of finding good employment opportunities relating to their degree when they graduate. Industries, from hospitality to the trades, are rightly calling for greater flexibility in the delivery of apprenticeships and more freedom in the way apprenticeship levy can be spent, enabling more employers to offer better opportunities for young people. But I want to see wider changes to the education system so it's much more geared towards preparing students for the world of work. The government claims to want economic growth, although its actions aren't exactly matching its words at the moment. But to achieve this faster growing economy, we need to get more people into work, and we need to have a laser focus on developing the next generation of entrepreneurs. Young people need to know there are other routes out there other than university to success into full-time employment. I know that inspirational former apprenticeships are spreading the word to students across the country, but let's make it easier for them to make the case for apprenticeship. Let's make sure every young person can choose the right path for them.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. It's an honour to serve under your chair, and I commend the Honourable Member, the Right Honourable Member for Hampshire East for bringing this debate. We just have to get further education right. There's no ifs, there's no buts around this. And so I want to confine my remarks to 3 areas. The first is around teachers, and we need more. The second is around space, and we need more. And the third is around T-levels and apprenticeships, and we need reform of both. First, we are running out of teachers in further education. Courses are closing, waiting lists are growing, and colleges cannot pay enough to attract people from industry. The Association of Colleges calculates an average pay gap of £9,000. Would the Minister consider presenting a medium-term plan to improve pay and conditions to get the teachers into our class spaces. Furthermore, will the Minister extend teacher workforce planning to further education as advised by the previous Education Select Committee? Second, we're in a situation where colleges don't have the space to train young people. We need sustained capital funding in the skills infrastructure, and I feel very blessed to have been able to visit the Poole campus of Bournemouth and Poole College, where so much more could be done to teach clean energy skills if they had the investment in the right space. They already know what space they want to build the facilities in, they just don't have the sustained capital funding to make it happen. Will the government appraise the needs of colleges and support them to access the spaces they need to provide apprenticeships and training in the skills that will fuel the growth of our economy, given that growth is the #1 mission of our government? And I'm looking forward to the government's confirmation of what the qualifications landscape will look like for school leavers, following the very welcome commitment to pause and review Conservative plans to defund popular qualifications like BTECs that rival T-levels. T-levels may need a substantial work, I said popular, I mean unpopular. T-levels may have a substantial work experience placement as part of a course, particularly in the case of education and childcare, that's the case. They may be a good idea in principle, and I've been very lucky to visit Bournemouth and Poole College and see how the health T-level is world leading. But just over 1 in 10 construction and engineering level T-level students couldn't complete the required work placement. Student numbers are lower than planned, dropouts are high, announced courses were cut or thrown into doubt before starting. Courses aren't funded for young adults aged 19 to 24, when our country needs them to be educated and training. And the rollout has been botched by the Conservative government that this Labour government replaced. So I asked the Minister, will the government increase support to employers taking T-level students? And with high hopes that the reformed growth and skills levy and the lifelong learning entitlement will give workers access to high-quality training in high-demand sectors, could I invite the Minister to Bournemouth to visit Bournemouth and Poole College, particularly the Bournemouth campus? At that college, we have 2,000 apprentices in training, an achievement rate that is at 8.4% of the national average and so outstanding. Huge economic differences are being made to local employers such as Sunseeker, who together with the college have launched a training initiative to address a national skills shortage affecting the marine industry. The Skills Academy provides fully paid 12-week intensive boat building skills across 5 specialisms. Following training, students join colleagues at the shipyards to achieve a nationally recognised qualification over 12 months. And we heard earlier from the Honourable Member who called this debate about whether or not we need a Skills England. I think what I would say is that the example of Bournemouth and Poole College working with Sunseeker shows the importance of an organisation that at a national level can find and fill gaps and coordinate the funding and the frameworks to actually grow our economy. And I'm going to close by talking about businesses like Octopus Energy. Octopus Energy is ensuring that we create over 4,000 skilled jobs, qualified heat pump installers by 2030 to help our government to meet its clean energy by 2030 mission. With the launch of the first employer-provided low-carbon heating apprenticeship scheme, Octopus is demonstrating how employer-providers can create high-quality apprentice programmes. But for employer-providers, we need changes. Changes need to be made to ensure apprenticeship funding rule requirements and the accountability framework reflect more of their needs rather than focusing mostly on the needs of the colleges and the training provider context. So would the Minister consider defining employer-provider specific funding rules in order to streamline the reporting responsibility? And would she, as part of the reform of Ofsted, another reform I welcome, support joint working by technical experts and Ofsted inspectors so that Ofsted inspectors better understand the technical requirements in inspections? This is particularly key for such a pioneering approach as that by Octopus Energy to developing skills driven by rapidly developing technology. And I want to close really by saying that for years now, the same thoughts have been swirling through my mind as they have the minds of many of my constituents, whose doors I've been knocking on over the last 2 years. And they all come down to this single question. Why can Bournemouth and Britain not do better? Why is it that we can't have the things that we're entitled to? Bad things are not inevitable. They're the result of political choices, the political choices of the last 14 years. We want to make different choices in Bournemouth and in Britain. We want young people to get on, to have decent, well-paying jobs, jobs that mean presence under the tree, a meal out with loved ones more often than not, a new home, a new car in the driveway, a sense of purpose and mission in the careers that they choose. And so I very much welcome the Minister in coming to this debate. I look forward to hearing her responses. I thank the Honourable Member for calling this important debate, but I really do call for a turning of the page, because for too long, too many people have been held back.
Before calling Jim Shannon, can I say that there are 5 people wishing to speak and 20 minutes, so you can do your own calculations. Jim Shannon.
Chairman, I'm not a great mathematician, but I know that means 4 minutes. Thank you very much. Can I first of all congratulate the Honourable Member for East Hampshire for leading the debate. I undertook a lot of work in relation to apprenticeships and specific levels through his time as Minister of State. He's done exceptionally well, and he's in a different role now, but he's still adding his advice and his experience. We must always do all we can to expand education and employment opportunities for young people across the United Kingdom. Every debate that I do, Chairman, Sir Christopher, I give an Northern Ireland perspective, and we'll do some of the things that we do back home and what we do well, I believe. The Department for Economy back home have released their yearly statistics on the uptaking of apprenticeships. It's really good news. It's a rise as of October 24, there were 1,756 people undertaking an apprenticeship in the electrotechnical field, 500 in health and social care, and 700 in plumbing, which I think the Honourable Member referred to in his contribution at the beginning. In addition, some 10,500 studying a Level 2 and 3,700 for a Level 3 award. I've spoken before, Mr Chairman, on the importance of apprenticeships and how they play a role in teaching young people a unique skill set after leaving school. However, it is crucial that this is properly reflected in their pay. So I know it's not the Minister's responsibility, but when it comes to apprenticeships, I think there really has to be something in their pay wage to make sure that they wish to stay on and finish their apprenticeships as well. Whenever their colleagues and friends may be earning much more for stacking the shelves, for instance, in Tesco's or Asda's. Just as an example, apprenticeships are important, but they need that wee bit of time and a wee bit of money to get through. The member has spoken prior on the importance of parity of his team between the academic and vocational routes. There must be an understanding that the university route does not always appeal to young people, and an option that must be there to encourage them to get out into the world of work. I believe the Minister is committed to that. I'd be interested to get our thoughts. In July to September 2024, there were some 513,000 unemployed people aged 18 to 24 in the UK. Employment rate of 13.7. Unfortunately, it's a rise of up from 11.6 the previous year. Again, Minister, apprenticeships are critical for that there. Let's get them into apprenticeships and let's reduce that unemployment rate. I hear what the member is saying in terms of T levels, and there is no doubt that there's a success with this option. In 2022, the first T level was announced, and some 1,029 entrants with a 92.2% pass rate. Excellent. As far as I'm aware, the T levels don't apply as for England and don't apply to the devolved nations. But it would be great to know what the Minister can do in relation to success stories and how we can exchange those thoughts with some of the regional administrations. Apprenticeships are a fantastic way to earn whilst you learn and allow for people to be fast-tracked into the working world. There are apprenticeships available in numerous sectors across the UK. We must be encouraging young people that there is an option for them after they choose to leave school. And many associate, Mr Chairman, the word apprenticeships with male dominance, and such as mechanics, engineering and plumbing. But there are endless opportunities out there in a large range of sectors for people of all ages with all interests, man and woman. And a lady can do a job equally as well as a man. And that should never be discredited in any way. Job creation is an issue that's important for the entirety of the UK, and to get individuals into the job market, the encouragement and the prospect must be there from school age. We must do more to encourage young people to think about their careers and their futures. More importantly, to make them aware that there are options in terms of what they want to do when they leave school. So I look to the Minister to see if engagement is possible on the future of expanding T-level qualifications to Northern Ireland and Scotland. Those discussions, can they take place? Or if the Minister would commit to undertaking discussions with the Department of Education back home in relation to this in the future, as equal opportunity for all young people should apply across the whole of this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. It's a pleasure to serve on your chairmanship, and can I congratulate the Right Honourable Gentleman for East Hampshire for securing this important debate. Hartlepool is very lucky to be served by some outstanding providers. Hartlepool FE College, under the inspiring leadership of its principal Darren Hankey, Hartlepool Sixth Form College, which I was privileged to once chair the Board of Governors, and the Northern School of Art with its international reputation. But diminished funding and demographic pressures have too often resulted in providers in competition rather than collaboration. And that's my first point to the Minister. We must set an environment where in towns like ours, our providers can collaborate effectively together to deliver for young people. On the 2017 reforms that were mentioned by the Right Honourable Gentleman in his speech, part of the issue here is that the levy and its spend it or lose it mentality meant that there was often a rush to spend it rather than think about proper workforce development. And indeed, £700 million ended up being top sliced by the Treasury, which the Association of Employment and Learning Providers said that's money raised for skills but not being spent on skills. So I welcome the new growth and skills levy and its greater flexibility, because that money raised has to go into developing the skills of our young people, and too often it wasn't in the past. I also think that we have to think about the parity of esteem, and in principle with T-levels, I really genuinely support the idea of creating that parity of esteem. The problem in places like Hartlepool, and I think it has been referenced and acknowledged already, is that we don't currently have the economy and the industrial placements to support them effectively. And taken together, the 2017 reforms and the rush to T-levels, and these are the words of the principal of Hartlepool FE College, it's actually resulted in fewer opportunities for younger people in constituencies like mine. And unfortunately, Hartlepool has one of the highest levels of not in education, employment or training anywhere in the country. I think there's another point that has to be raised here, and is a difficult one, because I absolutely understand the principle of the functional skills element of all of these qualifications, but there is a genuine concern in industry that this is actually acting as a blocker to some of our young people accessing the skills and training and the careers that they would like to go into, because they feel unable to get past that barrier of the functional skills element. So I would ask the Minister to give some consideration to that as well. I also think that in the round we have to think about this agenda from an immigration perspective. I marvel at the fact that my FE college in my constituency, which has seen a 10% cut in funding, which trains bricklayers, and yet we are importing bricklayers from abroad, and I have a constituency with one of the highest levels of unemployment in the country. It's not hard to square that circle. Let's train our own, let's fund our skills properly so that we do not have to rely on immigration from abroad. I want to finish just very briefly, because I appreciate I've got limited time. I think this point was made extremely well by the Right Honourable Gentleman. We have been obsessed with supply-side reform for far, far too long in this country. The numerous different qualifications, the constant changing of what offer is there. We have to move to a demand-side approach. If we get industry and jobs into places like Hartlepool to drive the industrial growth that we want to see, the skills will follow. That's the change that we have to see, and that's what I'd like to see delivered in constituencies like mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Christopher, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I'm immensely proud of my upbringing from a modest town in Northamptonshire. I grew up from a single-parent family with my mother, and it was the work ethic and morals that they instilled in me to learn more, to find out more about your community, to get a trade, to get a skill, to give me aspiration to succeed. And that's what really interests me in this debate, because I believe apprenticeships, technical training, on-the-job training really does instill that aspiration in individuals to better themselves, their community and their families. And that is why I'm so interested in this debate today. From personal experience, working from an early age brings countless benefits, and I do think it's a disgrace that governments have allowed NEET to increase to the level that it has today. How can it be right that we have 900,000 people aged between 16 and 24 not in education, employment or training? We are watching the next generation not pursuing their next steps in life to aspire to something better for themselves and their families. The default answer from governments over the last 20 years has been to funnel young people through higher education, with arbitrary targets mentioned by my honourable friend here, such as those set by the Blair government to get 50% of school leavers to go to university. But there is another option, and that is for apprenticeships and on-the-job training. Now, I'm immensely proud of the success of the last Conservative government, which delivered 5.8 million apprenticeships across the country. These apprenticeships offered young people the opportunities to get employment. Indeed, 70% of them were placed in occupations post-training. I also agree wholeheartedly with our manifesto commitment to create 100,000 extra highly skilled apprentices every year over the next Parliament. But what's gone wrong? Whilst there have been many achievements, it's disappointing that there's been stagnation in this area over the last few years. And going forward, some of the challenges that we've heard outlined in concerns about the budget, sadly, won't help the situation. I've had representations from bodies such as Engineering UK and Multiverse explaining that the crux of this issue lies with the apprenticeship levy. The standards involved with setting up apprentices is far too cumbersome, and the funds from the levy are being redirected from employers to classroom training and assessments. So is it no wonder why they're moving away from these types of schemes to more academy-based training in-house in their own companies and organisations? Now, what should we be doing instead? Now, there is much concern recently expressed, particularly on my side of the House, regarding the national insurance contribution changes. I don't see that helping the situation. I believe we should be encouraging employers to take on more employees, indeed through the apprenticeship route, so when they finish their apprenticeships, they can then stay within organisations. Just recently, in my constituency, I've had a number of small, medium-sized employers express concerns to me that the changes in the employers' national insurance contributions is going to mean they're going to incur thousands of pounds of extra costs, and they're going to have to look at stuff like this when they look at their forward planning and forward recruitment. So I do urge the government... No, I've got limited time. I do urge the government to reconsider these proposals. And finally, I think the tone needs to change from the top. Over many years, there's been this perception, at least, that apprenticeships, technical training, suddenly hasn't been on par with university education or with more academic routes. Now, I went through the academic route. My brother went through the apprenticeship work-based training route. Now, he's earning far more money than I am now. But he went through that route because he left school without any qualifications. He left school without any qualifications, but he went to night school, trained himself, got an apprenticeship, went through the right route, learnt a skill, and is now being very successful. So, in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I do hope the government takes on board the arguments I put forward. Thank you.
Gareth now.
Thank you very much, Christopher. It's a pleasure to chair your chairmanship in what is an incredibly important debate about the future of our young people. And I would like to take a moment just to congratulate the Right Honourable Gentleman from East Hampshire for his tenacity in this issue. I remember his time as the Education Secretary under the government of Mrs May, where I know that he had a genuine passion for this issue, and to see him still banging the drum on many years later, I think, is a testament to his character. And I happen to agree with quite a lot with what he has said over the many years that he's been talking about this, about the importance of technical education, about the necessity to understand that technical education is not the younger sister of A-level and academic qualification. It's not the less important member of the family of opportunities presented to young people. And much like the comment from the Honourable Gentleman from Mid-Leicestershire, we have an incumbency upon us all to say to young people who are looking at their options, and I declare an interest, Sir Christopher, I'm the governor of a sixth form college in my constituency that provides T-levels. We're one of the outstanding providers in the West Midlands, and I have a daughter who is soon to be thinking about options next year for her GCSE. So where she goes and what she does is very much on her mind. But I think it's important that we all say to our young people, whatever you choose to do, the routes available to you will help you be the best at it as you can be, whether that be A-level, whether that be T-level, whether that be through some of the remaining AGQs once the pause and review process has finished, because we do find ourselves sometimes in this false dichotomy of talking about academic on one side and vocational and technical on the other, and actually it is a breadth of opportunity that we present to our young people in a simplified and accessible way that will be the determination of whether they are successful or not. Now again, Sir Christopher, as I said, I have two colleges in my constituency, Stoke Sixth Form College and Stoke-on-Trent College. under the leadership of Mark Kent and now Leslie Morrie, the Sixth Form College is providing, as I say, regional leading qualifications and T-levels, BTECs and A-levels, and under the former leadership of Lisa Capper and now the interim principal Antoinette Linthgow, Stoke-on-Trent College is demonstrating what can be done at all levels of potential learning. And I think a city like Stoke-on-Trent, not that dissimilar to the constituency of my honourable friend, is a city that has challenges, and I know that the opportunity provided to young people at FE can be the greatest social mobility driver that there is. It is what can unlock their potential. But there is a challenge to make sure they are on the right path. T-levels have been excellent for my city, and I will again commend the Honourable Gentleman from East Hampshire for the programme that he brought in when he was Education Secretary. Not only is it about the uplifting funding that comes for each young person, which better reflects the necessity of the work that goes in from the excellent staff, but the capital funding that was available for those institutions that were the first wave to take them up has allowed us to expand our college to create new incredible facilities that mean the learning experience of those young people is brilliant. Where I think the government is right is to continue looking at this breadth, but I would say to the Minister, and I have written to her noble friend in the other place about this, that the pause and review is doing a job of work in looking at what BTECs are available, but much like the comment from my friend from Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, the colleges in my constituency are trying to plan now for what they can offer in September 2025. They don't currently know what they can offer. They've been asked to submit their projected T-level enrolment numbers now, but they don't know whether they're going to be offering equivalent BTEC for the same course. So they're having to overinflate their numbers and worry about in-year clawback, or they have to worry about lack of lag funding for the AECQ. So I would urge her to take that back to the department. And with the remaining time that I have left, Sir Christopher, I would say that whilst this debate has been excellent in talking about young people, there is a conversation as a nation we have to have about adult education and making sure that people in places like Hartlepool and Stoke-on-Trent who have to change career because of changing way industry works have the same opportunities to retrain, get new skills, get those well-paid, secure, hopefully unionised jobs that come and make a meaningful contribution to where they live and our country. Thank you.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Christopher. Serve under your chairing this afternoon. I also pay tribute to the Right Honourable Member for East Hampshire, whose speech was really interesting, and also praise him for his tenacity and expertise on this, his seriousness on this subject. I'll restrict my remarks, if I may, to the issues of T-levels and apprenticeships in the areas of tourism and agriculture. They are two huge employers in my constituency and the rest of Cumbria. 60,000 people in Cumbria work in tourism. There are 1,500 farms in my constituency alone. They are hugely connected, without a doubt. And for example, there is, 20 million people who visit the lakes every year, and we know that many of them come because of the beauty of the landscape, which is maintained by our farmers. In terms of our workforce, just to give you a quick for instance, Sir Christopher, 80% of the entire working age population that lives in the Lake District already works in hospitality and tourism. So we don't do something to bring people in, to create more affordable homes, to build our workforce, but specifically to train and retain our young people so we don't carry on losing over a third of them every single generation. Then we are in serious trouble. When it comes to T-levels, there's no doubt whatsoever that employers within the tourism economy of Cumbria strongly believe, as I do, that T-levels are an important potential source of boosting the pipeline of skilled workers, and offering level 3 qualifications will enhance the employability of young people and enable progression to higher education, linking, for example, with the University of Cumbria's excellent graduate apprenticeship programme. They recognise and they strongly believe that the previous government, delayed and took too long to introduce a T-level in catering, and are pressuring this government. I met with the Baroness Smith just last week to raise this point directly to her, so I'd ask the Minister to look at this again. Please will she consult with employers within Cumbria to make sure the T-level in catering and other equivalent level 3 and level 4 qualifications are made available so we can qualify our children for this important area of work in the future. 85% of employers who host T-level students report improved access to skilled talent when that is available, so I do ask that she takes that seriously. I'll switch then quickly over to apprenticeships in the agricultural sector. The total number of apprenticeship starts in agriculture in Cumbria the year before last, the last year we have data, year were 140, only 70 completed. No higher level apprenticeships at level 4 above were accomplished. We've got 1,500 farms. That is far too few people coming forward as potential entry level. We've had all the discussion this week about succession, which is so very important. The decline in new farm entrants threaten the sector's long-term viability. They, of course, are also, the future of the farming sector is also exacerbated by the loss of educational infrastructure as well. The previous government failed to intervene to save Cumbria's Agricultural College, Newton Rigg, and whilst Kendal College and other FE and HE institutions around the county are doing their best to fill the gap, that is a loss that we still seriously fail. The UK only provides 55% of its own food, and apprenticeships and succession in farming is crucial to our food security. The agricultural policy of this and the last government has disincentivised the production of farming. That is fatal and foolish. We've seen this week the complaints quite rightly about the inheritance tax changes, which will lead to more farmland moving into ownership of equity and large corporations and not being used for food production. But our failure to grow the workforce is also of enormous significance. So I asked the Minister to look very, very closely about at higher level apprenticeships in agriculture, to address the gap in advanced agricultural training at level 4 and above, and to develop leadership skills amongst future farmers to sustain the sector and the rural economy as a whole. Would she introduce agricultural degree apprenticeships in partnership with the University of Cumbria and local colleges to create a pipeline for agricultural leadership? And I'll leave it there at 4 minutes.
Ian Sullum.
Thank you, Chair, and it is indeed a pleasure to serve under you today. And thank you to all honourable members who've taken part in this debate today, and indeed the member for East Hampshire for bringing this. I'm sure we'd all agree that we owe it to our young people to ensure that they have access to all options of education and training, and that those options are of the very highest standard. And we know that that isn't always the case in the present system, and that's having an impact not just on young people and their futures, but as has been said, that has an impact on the country's economic development and prospects. Apprenticeships, vocational education, skills, they're all vital if the government is serious about its growth mission and breaking down barriers to opportunity, ambitions I think that we would all share. But the system does need reform, and it's reform that's required across the board. Starting actually right at the beginning with ensuring that all young people are fully aware and informed of all the options that they have, as many thousands as it may be, in the post-16 and post-18-year-old points. So we do need to see an improvement in the quality of careers education, information advice and guidance in schools to support them making those decisions. Absolutely.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. I have many residents in my constituency of Wokingham who are very concerned about the uncertainty around T-level courses and other existing level 3 qualifications. Students in Wokingham have been looking at courses and colleges to apply to. Some colleges are currently unable to confirm existing level 3 courses. Would you agree that the current lack of clarity about the implementation of T-level courses is causing unnecessary stress to parents, students and teachers?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and absolutely I would agree, and I will come back to that slightly later in my speech. So those services that inform and offer guidance, they need to be informed themselves about the local and national job market, which industries and sectors are growing, which skills are in demand to support that will support them into top quality jobs. We know that there are skills shortages, and giving those sort of higher quality, useful information, that's going to be essential to plugging that skills gap. Now, on apprenticeships, the Lib Dems recognise that not only do we need more apprenticeships, but they do need to be more attractive to young people. And so guaranteeing that apprenticeship pays at least the national minimum wage would be a good place to start. The Chancellor did announce a welcome increase in the apprentices' wage in the budget last month. But after those changes, that amount will still only be just over 60% of the national living wage. So that is quite a disincentive for young people to take up an apprenticeship. But also, we've heard today as well that the apprenticeship levy isn't working as well as it should. Employers often can't get the funding they need to train staff. And in the 2023-24 period, the levy did raise £3.9 billion for the Treasury. But the apprenticeship budget, which is separate, awarded only £2.7 billion. Now, there is £500 million that goes down to the devolved nations, as it should, under the Barnett formula, but that still leaves a shortfall of £700 million, as was pointed out by the member for Hartlepool, and that's money that's paid into the levy and therefore to the Treasury, but doesn't actually reach employers. You know, as was said, it's raised for skills, but isn't spent on skills. And that's at a time when the government says it is keen to encourage businesses to invest in skills. So we do need to see it directed to skills. I mean, furthermore, the system was designed so levy payers don't spend all their levy funds, and small businesses can access the levy to fund apprenticeships as well. That said, 98% of the apprenticeship budget has been spent each year for the past 3 years, and if large employers do spend all of their levy fund, there will be no apprenticeship funding remaining for small businesses. And we know small businesses are crucial to the apprentice system. Non-levy paying employers recruit more apprentices each year than levy paying businesses. And last year, that was 42,000 under 19-year-old apprentices compared to 35,000 by larger recruiters, so it's a difference of 7,000. Now, I know we're waiting for more details on the government's new growth in skills levy, but if the government is serious about pivoting the apprenticeship system more towards young people, it does really need to sort out that apprenticeship funding. Now on to T levels. The Liberal Democrats do welcome the ambition to achieve equal value between academic and vocational routes. I think that's been a common theme across many parties for a considerable amount of time. But we don't agree with the last government's decision to simply scrap dozens and dozens of BTEC courses. Those qualifications are a middle pathway for many students to benefit from a combination of academic and applied qualifications, or those who find the T-level entry requirements are just simply too high. Research indicates that BTEC significantly improve university entry rates for both white working class and black students. And there are many parts of industry that are concerned with T-levels as well. So, for example, the hospitality sector that prides itself on having no barriers to entry, no industry experience, and opens its doors to people with low educational attainment, it encourages a more diverse, inclusive and accessible workforce to do that. The hospitality T-level requires 5 GCSEs of grade 5 and above for 16 to 18-year-olds to be accepted onto a course, and that excludes a whole host of young people with many non-academic skills and talents who could make a really successful career in hospitality. And I think it's important that we keep those BTEC routes for those people. As others have mentioned, we've also seen problems with the rollout of T-levels, and concerns expressed by education providers and employers about their ability to deliver industry placements. A report by the Education Policy Institute this year also highlighted issues with student retention, with nearly a third of first-year health and science T-level students dropping out of their programme. So until those new T-levels are well established and understood by students and employers, proven to be successful, rolling back BTECs, which are successful, is a huge mistake. So the government's decision earlier in the year to review that defunding of BTECs was welcome, but now, as my right honourable friend pointed out, the delay in the outcome of that review is affecting planning for next academic year and actually the opportunities available to young people. So I would urge them to get on and publish it. And just finally, Chair, I would say on a lot of issues around skills at the moment, it seems to be that the answer is Skills England. And I would echo the words of the member for East Hampshire in his opening remarks, that the King's speech did talk about the Skills England bill. That bill that is in the other place doesn't talk about Skills England at all. So we would welcome the opportunity to debate Skills England in the legislation itself. Thank you.
I also congratulate my right honourable friend from East Hampshire for securing this super important debate. All Westminster Hall debates are equal, but some are more equal than others. And when I saw the title of this debate and I saw that it was being led by my right honourable friend from East Hampshire, I knew that it would be a good one, and I have not been disappointed at all, nor have I been disappointed by the other excellent speeches from members from Dudley, Hemel Hempstead, Mansfield, Broxbourne, Bournemouth East, Hartlepool, Ms Leicestershire, Stoke-on-Trent Central, Westmorland, Lonsdale, St Neots, and a rare appearance from the honourable member from Strangford as well, which I'm sure we'll all be savouring more indeed. I thought my right honourable friend from East Hampshire did a superb job of giving us the fruit of many, many years of experience and his multiple periods of service in public life, 2 stints in the DFE. Of this whole issue. He talked about the alphabet soup of organisations and qualifying bodies, the traineeships, the apprenticeships, the modern apprenticeships, the city and guilds, the GMVQs, the NVQs, the skills for life, the diplomas, the BTECs, and now the T-levels. And the question, of course, being, will T-levels just be another element added into this alphabet soup, or will we actually realise the vision of what we called the Sainsbury routes and rationalise this system? He raised big questions about where the government are going with traineeships and the apprenticeship levy and with Skills England. And it won't surprise my right honourable friend that I am going to be picking up on exactly those questions. So my questions to the Minister are, firstly, does the government have a forecast for the number of apprenticeships that will be happening and starting over this Parliament? Certainly such a forecast has existed in the past. I have seen it when I was in government. So does the government have such a forecast? Will it publish that forecast? What is the forecast number of apprenticeships that we're going to be having starting over the course of this Parliament? Because unless we know that baseline, we can't ask sensible questions like, what is the impact of the growth and skills levy going to be on the number of apprenticeships? We can't have that debate about the trade-offs between one desirable thing, more flexibility for businesses, and another desirable thing, more apprenticeships. On a specific question, can I ask the Minister, is it still the government's policy to allow 50%, rather than a number, 50% of levy funds to be spent on non-apprenticeships, or will it be perhaps some other number now? What is the impact of the national insurance increase? Firstly, on the number of apprenticeships. This is why, of course, we want to know the baseline. And what is the impact on the FE sector more generally? Of course, the national insurance increase is laser-like focused on lower-income workers. And that particularly hits, of course, people who are apprentices, and it also hits people in the FE sector. So there is every reason to think this will be particularly impactful on those two sectors. Will the further education sector be fully compensated for the national insurance increase or not? And I'm going to echo some questions raised by the member for Bournemouth East. He has some excellent questions about college funding. Colleges are now classified, as I mentioned, those as part of the public sector. and yet they are not exempt from paying VAT like other parts of the public sector. Is it the government's intention to change this or not? Now, Baroness Smith the other day said that college staff felt, and I quote, rightly very disappointed that they were not given the same pay increase as school teachers, and she implied that the government would look to close that historic and multi-decade-long gap. I'm not asking for miracles from the government here. This is a very long-standing challenge that everyone says is a problem. It's obviously become slightly worse in the first pay round under this government. The gap's grown a bit more. Is it the government's aspiration in the long term to close that gap between college teachers, sixth form college teachers, and teachers in schools? Is it the government's aspiration? I'm just interested in whether that is, in fact, the direction of travel or not. And there are also some structural questions I wondered if the Minister could answer as well. IFA Bell is obviously going through the Lords at the moment. We've already raised this question about Skills England, and the powers, of course, as the member for St Neots said, are being taken not into a new independent body, but directly into the department. And as my right honourable friend for East Hampshire said, it would be pretty extraordinary if the ministers set their own standards for A-levels. Why do we think it's okay in technical education? So what is the government's game plan after the IFA bill? What is the plan to restore independent standard setting rather than having it in what is only an agency of the department? And if I can ask a really specific question, this is a genuine question, I don't understand this decision, which is, why did the department refuse to share the terms of reference for the short review of 16 to 19 qualifications with the wider world? I know that FE Week certainly put in a freedom of information request to get it, which is a pretty extraordinary thing for them to have to do. I mean, normally when you have a review, you publish the terms of reference. It's not a secret, this review. We know what the government is looking at. They're looking at a known question to do with BTECs and what will happen. So why did the government not publish it, and will it now publish that? And on this last structural question, my sympathies are entirely with the Minister and with the government. There is a big challenging question. It's not a straightforward challenge. We've heard the case for various members for BTECs. The member for Hemel Hempstead made a sort of passionate pro-BTEC case. On the other hand, Lord Sainsbury, I worked on T-levels, I should declare an interest, before they were T-levels, when they were still called the Sainsbury routes, and the huge amount of work that he, Gordon Brown, others before him, Nick Bowles and others, had done to bring them to that point of trying to rationalise this alphabet soup. T-levels are our best hope. They are a more demanding qualification. They do have a higher level of funding. They use a lot more time in industry. They're a better qualification that is bringing that parity of esteem, that higher quality to the FE sector, and they are our big chance to rationalise this thing that everyone says and agrees is a problem. So how far is the government going to go towards replacing some of the existing qualifications, and what is the government's overall strategy? What is the vision for how this will pan out?
Minister.
Thank you. It's a privilege to speak with you and the Chair, Sir Christopher Chope. I congratulate the Right Honourable Member for East Hampshire on securing this important debate, and I thank him for sharing his wide and comprehensive knowledge of past and present qualifications and awards. And I'm also grateful for the challenge he and many others in this chamber have brought to this debate. This government is indeed ambitious for young people and is excited and optimistic about what can be achieved. As members have rightly stated and spoken about apprenticeships, BTECs and T-levels and what this can offer, which is incredible opportunities for young people, we have heard from many members about their superb colleges and students from their constituencies. Indeed, we've heard from the member for Glastonbury and Somerset, Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, Dudley, Sutton and Cheam, and Mansfield and the Honourable Member for Bournemouth East have both sent out, have mentioned an invite to their prospective colleges. And of course I will indeed pass this on to my noble friend, the Minister for Skills in the other place.
Could she also take back an invitation to Stoke-on-Trent to her noble friend?
Very smart and clever indeed. I will, of course, pass on that invitation to Stoke-on-Trent as well. We've also heard from the member for Braxbury, Strangford, Hartlepool, Mid-Leicestershire, And it is great to hear about his brother's achievements. So I thank him for that, as well as hearing from my honourable friend for Stoke-on-Trent Central, Westmoreland and Longsdale, St Notes and Mid-Cambridgeshire, Wokingham, and of course the Shadow Minister. I've heard people speak on many issues in this debate regarding greater diversity in the workforce to do with women and STEM, people being represented from diverse backgrounds, as well as concerns around BTECs, apprenticeships, T-levels and the apprenticeship levy, teaching for further education, teachers, reform of qualifications, colleges needing certainty in future courses and indeed specific courses. And I hope to address these and many other remarks as much as time allows and as much as I can do, including the areas raised by the Right Honourable Member for East Hampshire as well. Now, it is this government's mission to drive and increase opportunity for young people across the country. And working with Skills England, it is this government's mission to support employers to train up people, identify and develop the skills they need to grow, helping to kickstart economic growth. Early investment in young people pays off for employers. We want young people to be enthusiastic, to be energised and passionate about learning and developing in their work. And this will, of course, benefit employers and indeed the industry. It will benefit our wider economy, galvanised by a new generation that is willing to work hard and to progress in their careers. Now, in recent years, it is a concern when young people have seen their apprenticeship opportunities disappear. And we ask ourselves, why is this? It may be helpful to remind the Right Honourable Member opposite me that following apprenticeships reforms made by the previous government, including the introduction of the apprenticeship levy in 2017, apprenticeship starts by young people under 25 fell by almost 40%, according to the Department of Education's published data. It is also concerning that so many workers and employers have told us they find it difficult to access the skills they need. UK employers report that over a third of UK vacancies in 2022 were due to skill shortages. This is what we have inherited. It is also stark to find that OECD stating that 26% of the UK workforce is underqualified for their job, compared to an OECD average of 18%. There are widespread skills shortages in such areas as constructions, manufacturing and health and social care. These are areas where we desperately need workers. And that is why meeting the skill needs of the next decade is central to delivering all of our government's 5 missions. To remind everybody, economic growth, opportunity for all, a stronger NHS, safer streets and clean energy. This government will create a clear, flexible, high-quality skills system with a culture of businesses valuing and investing in training that supports people of all ages and backgrounds, breaking down the barriers to opportunity and driving economic growth. We are bringing forward legislation to enable us to establish Skills England to work with key stakeholders. Skills England will make sure that we know where our skill gaps are, to ensure there is a comprehensive suite of apprenticeships, training and technical qualifications which are aligned with those skills and the needs of employers. Now, I've heard worries that Skills England will not have the independence of authority it needs, and I would like to dispel those concerns today. Skills England will have an independent board which will provide leadership and direction, as well as scrutiny to ensure that it is operating effectively and within the agreed framework. Growth and skills is essential. We have listened to employers who have told us that the current apprenticeship system does not work. We must do more to support them to access the training they need to fill their skills gaps and spread opportunity. Our growth and skills offer will provide employers and learners with greater flexibility and choice. It will create routes into good, skilled jobs in growing industries aligned with our industrial strategy. We are introducing, I'm going to make progress and then I'll take some if I can. We are introducing new shorter duration apprenticeships and foundation apprenticeships as a first key step towards greater flexibility that will benefit employers and indeed the students. We recognise that some roles need less than 12 months training and employers are currently locked out of offering apprenticeships. We are looking to support sectors, for example, that make use of fixed terms contracts and where there is seasonal demands or specific recruitment timetables. We'll engage with employers via Skills England and introduce this flexibility where the justification is clear. Our new work-based foundation apprenticeship will focus on ensuring that training is directed towards real vacancies. It will offer young people a broad training offer with clear, seamless progression into other apprenticeships. Unlike the last government, we will work closely with employers and providers. This government will make sure we get it right. I would give my...
The Minister talked about introducing this flexibility where appropriate. It sounded like perhaps only in some sectors. Just on this specific point, is it still the intention for all employers to be able to use 50% of their apprenticeship levy for things that are not apprenticeships?
Yes, sir.
The area which he has mentioned is an area that is currently being reviewed, and as that information comes out, I'm sure we'll make him very much aware of it. Now, in order to open up the growth and skills offer and to deliver opportunity where it's most needed, we'll be asking more employers to step forward and fund Level 7 apprenticeships themselves outside of the apprenticeship budget. Of the 2.5 million workers in critical demand occupations, the vast majority, over 80%, require qualification lower than degree level. So it feels right that we focus our support on those getting on at the start of their working lives rather than those already towards the top of the ladder. As I've already said, this government believes all young people should have access to high quality training that meets their needs and provides them with opportunities to thrive. That is why we are committed to making a success of T-levels and extending the opportunity they provide to as many young people as possible. We have introduced 3 new T-levels this year, opening up more opportunity for young people in the area of craft and design, media, broadcast and production, as well as animal care. It was great to see an overall pass rate this year of nearly 90% and to learn that 83% of T-level students that applied to higher education secured a place. At the end of the last academic year, over 30,000 young people had taken a T-level, and we want to ensure that many more have the opportunity to study T-levels. But we know that some changes are needed if we want to make a reality of this. That is why we are looking at the delivery of current T-levels to ensure that more young people are able to enrol and succeed on one. Alongside this, our review of post-16 qualifications reforms will ensure there are a range of high-quality qualifications at Level 3 alongside T-levels and A-levels to support the skill needs of employers and the needs of learners. I give my...
Will you agree to publish the terms of reference of that review?
Minister.
Thank you. I've heard the Shadow Minister mention that already, and I believe he has already received a response. No, you had already received a response. No, but I'm sorry, I've already answered. Last month's budget saw a good settlement for further education and skills, including 300 million revenue funding into further education. 300 million capital investment to support colleges to maintain, improve and secure suitability of their estate. Now, each one of us here knows the importance of high-quality skills training for young people, and I'm grateful for the considered contributions of everyone that has spoken during this debate. When we look at statistics, it is clear that for too long, young people have been locked out of opportunities that can benefit them most. The actions I've outlined here today will give us a real sense of the opportunity to make a real difference for learners and employers. At the heart of this government's mission to spread opportunity and drive economic growth across all parts of our country.
Damien Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. It's been a good debate, and thank you to everybody who took part, bringing their own perspectives. One thing I just want to say, you can't legislate for parity of esteem, you can only earn it. And high-quality apprenticeships and T-levels can do that because young people know the standards have been set by employers and they are right for the levels that you need to succeed in those sectors. Crucially, to have confidence in the integrity of qualifications, they need to be set independently. And in the case of these qualifications, they need to be set with business. She has an opportunity. There is a bill going through Parliament at the moment, and when the IFATE Transfer of Powers Bill comes to the Commons at committee stage, please will they put down a government amendment to take that independence and the involvement of business and write it into law.
That this House has considered apprenticeships and T-levels. As many of them say aye. As you know, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.